Thank you, Chair. Allow me to join others who have expressed their gratitude to the organizers of the workshop, of the summit here. We are grateful that we're here. So I'll just join them and add our voice to their appreciation. Like you've rightly said, there are three of us who are going to make presentations, so I'll be very brief in my presentation. I hope you've noted the time.
You cannot see.
No, I cannot see, but can I see from, can I do from here?
Yes. Down for start.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, that is the scope of my presentation. I'll not go through it, you can read it. That is the law on human trafficking in Zambia. We have the Anti-Human Trafficking Act of 2008. Then we have the Human Tissue Act and the Penal Code. The Penal Code provides for offenses, and then it also provides for penalties under Section 146. Any person who knowingly lives wholly or in part on the earnings of prostitution or in any public place, persistently solicits or importunes for immoral purposes, commits a felony and is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 15 years. Like other jurisdictions, our laws provide for imprisonment of minimum 15 years up to a maximum of 30 years under the various legislations. There is a legislation, again, there's a provision where a person compels a child to become a prostitute. That person is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for life. So life is the longest imprisonment term you can get, and that is why, to a very large extent, in our jurisdiction, most of the crimes where there's murder involved, where a person has been trafficked or for one reason or another, they've ended up being killed, the penalty, the matter is adjudicated under the Penal Code, because that is where you get the maximum sentence of death. Then Section 149 of the Penal Code provides that any person who keeps a house, room, set of rooms, or place of any kind for purposes of prostitution commits a felony and is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 15 years, but not exceeding 25 years. So you can see that we believe that these laws, to a very large extent, are very lenient. Perhaps that is why we have the perpetration of the crimes. The Anti-Human Trafficking Act provides for the prohibition, prevention, and prosecution of human trafficking. Section 2 provides for definition of sexual exploitation. And then Section 3.1 provides that, subject to subsection 2, a person who intentionally and unlawfully traffics another person commits an offense and is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years, but not exceeding 30 years. So the Act provides for terms of imprisonment. As can be deciphered from the above provisions, trafficking for sexual exploitation attracts, like I said, a sentence of 25 years to life imprisonment with hard labor. In Zambia, the Human Trafficking Act, and to some extent the Human Tissue Act, deals with the removal of body parts. The preamble to the Human Tissue Act states that an act to make provision with respect to the examination and use of or of parts of bodies of deceased persons for therapeutic purposes and purposes of medical education and research. And then Section 3 of the same Act, where a victim is trafficked for purposes of the removal of the victim's body parts, contrary to the Human Tissue Act, the offender is liable to imprisonment for a term of not less than 25 years and not exceeding 35 years. It is also patent to see that the Zambian government has made tremendous efforts to ensure that it curbs human trafficking for purposes of prostitution and other illegal activities. Now, right, we have, like other jurisdictions, dealt with matters pertaining to the issues that are under discussion today, but I think I need to point out, I think I think my sister from Uganda has said, the High Court does not deal with these cases of human trafficking. These matters come up to court, to the High Court, only when it comes to sentencing because of jurisdiction. A magistrate court cannot sentence above 9 years. So they'll deal with the case at magistrate's court, and then it comes up to the High Court for sentencing, except for murder cases. Murder cases, the High Court is a court of original jurisdiction. So that is why you notice even from my presentation that I've just cited a few cases just to highlight the fact that some of them will come up to the High Court merely for purposes of sentencing. But if it is trial, the whole trial is done within the magistrate's court. So that is why I have indicated a few cases there. Under the Human Trafficking Act, the 2017 National Gender-Based Violence Crime Statistics Annual Returns indicated that 9 cases of human trafficking were reported. Of the 9 cases, 1 was concluded and a conviction recorded, whereas 8 cases were still pending by the end of 2017. According to our statistics, I have segmented the cases by provinces or regions. From the western and northwestern parts of the country, in the first quarter of 2018, 3 Congolese and a Zambian were prosecuted and convicted for trafficking 15 children, comprising 5 females and 9 males respectively. The perpetrators were sentenced by the High Court to 25 years imprisonment with hard labor using Section 3(2) of the Anti-Human Trafficking Act. In another case, a man was charged with smuggling of persons contrary to Section 9 of the Anti-Human Trafficking Act, and this case involved 4 victims who were all juvenile females between the ages of 8 to 12. The accused person attempted to smuggle them from Katimamuliro border into Namibia, but was intercepted, and he was sentenced by the High Court to 15 years imprisonment with hard labor. There was another case of a man aged 28. He was arrested by Zambia police for trafficking 8 teenage girls to Namibia. According to the police, the girls were forced to travel through Zambezi in the northwestern province. Namibian security forces were alerted by the Zambia police and managed to round up the teenagers. This man is now facing 8 counts of human trafficking before the Senanga Magistrates Court. He is accused of having lured the girls with promises of higher standards of living. It comes back to issues of poverty. You want to get out of this grind of living from day to day on an empty stomach. You think you're going to find a better standards of living elsewhere, and so you're lured by this. And then in the eastern part of Zambia, we had a case of a man and a woman who were charged with 2 counts. Under count 1, it was alleged that they consented to being smuggled, and I think this was highly debated upon in this conference. And in the second part, they were charged with smuggling of persons. Concerning the latter, the matter involved 16 people of the same family, the youngest being 6 months old and the oldest 21 years of age. The matter was sent back to the subordinate court by the High Court for retrial on a technicality. And I think we did hear from other jurisdictions in here that there are certain instances when a matter comes to the High Court for sentencing. As a High Court judge, you analyze the file and you discover that a good job was not done. You have 2 options. You either send it back for retrial or you acquit. But in this case, it was opted, the offense was grave enough. If it hadn't been for the fact that it had been mismanaged at a magisterial level, it probably would have, the persons would have been convicted. But the judge decided, rather than dismissing the matter, to send it back so that it could be heard afresh. The only danger is that maybe at that point in time, as you are sending it back for a trial, the witnesses will have disappeared. But that's a risk we are ready to take so that we can get a conviction. Not that we want a conviction at all costs, but we're looking at the law and making sure that a conviction is obtained. We had another matter of a man who was charged with smuggling of persons. The matter was also sent back to the subcourt by the High Court for retrial because of technical issues. Now, when you examine the cases under the Anti-Human Trafficking Act, no one was sentenced under Section 3.3 of the Act. There's one case where, with respect to removal of, illegal removal of body parts, 7 cases were reported to the Zambia police between October 21 to February 24, 2018. The victims in all the 7 cases have been males aged between 25 and 40 years old. The suspected ritual killers are to some extent a result of false beliefs promoted by some traditional healers and herbalists who claim that the use of body parts in rituals can help one to accumulate wealth. The country has seen a prevalence of body parts harvesting from albino persons which are used for ritual purposes. There is currently an ongoing case in the High Court because this case ended up in people being murdered, so it had to come to the High Court, and it is right now still being heard, wherein the accused persons have been charged with murder contrary to Section 200 of the Penal Code. It is alleged that they killed 5 people, they killed these victims in order to harvest their body parts. I thank you.